This week we delved deeper into what a servant leader looked like, how they acted, what they did, and even examples of what a servant leader was. In order to find those, we looked at principles of empowerment, leadership styles, and the characteristics of a servant leader. But as you find out more and more about what a servant leader is, you can also find examples of what that looks like or doesn't look like. The following are 3 videos that show examples of different styles of servant leadership. The first video that I watched was Lean on Me, which follows a principal who is walking into a school situation that is definitely not the best. His leadership style is not one that most would think of with servant leadership, but when one examines more closely what he's doing for the students and not just the faculty, then you can really start to see his leadership style as a servant leader start to emerge. In the video clip for Lean on Me, the first thing that I noticed right away was the principle of empowerment, which was delegating authority. When the principal walked in, he immediately began to offer up jobs to different people. For example, right away, he singled out the custodian as a critical part of the team, which obviously that person had never seen themselves as an important piece of the system. He knew that if he could get him on board, it would help to make sure that the learning environment was safe, it was clean, and it had all of the necessary pieces in place. He gave someone that had never been given a position of authority the opportunity that would help him later on to become more a part of the team and a bigger piece of what the school needed at the time. From there, you also could see some different characteristics of servant leadership. The first one that I noticed was that he was extremely authentic. He was very open. You had no doubt what he was thinking because that's exactly what he was saying. He never tried to hide something. He was very honest with what he saw as the issues in the school. He wasn't trying to sugarcoat it just to make people happy or like him. He made sure that he told them exactly what he saw and what he was hoping to see in the future. And then the last characteristic that I noticed was that he was present. He set forth what he expected. He made sure he was clear about what pieces he wanted to see in place, and he made sure he wanted to be clear about what he didn't want to see. He talked about what his expectations were, and he made sure that everyone in the room knew what those would be and what they needed to do to get to meet those expectations. The next example of servant leadership that I watched was A Bug's Life. This silly animated film actually focuses on an ant named Flick, but in the specific clip that I watched, that wasn't the leader that emerged. It was another ant who was helping with the harvest of grains that was the example of a servant leader. In the clip, a couple of ants were unsure what to do because of what they saw as a huge issue when a leaf fell in their path that they'd been taking over and over again, probably for weeks or months. The principle of empowerment that I saw right away is that he was willing to solve problems. He didn't criticize the ant for being worried or scared or not knowing what to do, but instead he gave a clear solution of how to solve the problem. He looked for a way to make it better instead of looking for someone to blame it on. One of the characteristics that I noticed was that he was very present. He made sure not to get overwhelmed by the obstacle or the fears of others. The other people around him were obviously distraught and were very worried, but you never saw the ant break a sweat. You never saw him be intimidated or scared. He instantly began to look for a solution instead of worrying about what could be or what might be. The other characteristic that I noticed was that he was very useful. He heard the concerns. He made sure that the ants knew that he saw what they saw, that he understood where their fears were coming from, but then he encouraged them to try another way. Instead of just beating them down for being worried or not trying something on their own, he gave them the encouragement that they would need to try a different way. And then from there, he made sure he cheered them on when they started to succeed. When they took their step around the leaf, he didn't walk away and hope that they continued on. He cheered on their willingness to try something new so that they felt as if they had accomplished something as well. The final example that I watched was the video clip with the quotes from Mother Teresa called Words of Love. I've long admired Mother Teresa as someone who was kind of the penultimate example of a servant leader because she was always thinking about ways to serve other people. In the clip, lots of quotes stood out as examples of servant leadership, but a few of the things that caught my eye the most were first, principles of empowerment. She did all things based on love. Even one of her quotes said that it was more important to give love rather than accomplish something. And she always thought about the needs of others over her own. All her work was for the betterment of other people and not for her acquisition of power. One of the characteristics that I think was most evident with Mother Teresa's quotes was that she was very vulnerable. She was open about how hard it was to give so much. She talked about how it wasn't easy. She talked about how it wasn't always going to be fun. But she also showed her joy and love for others openly and in every situation. She tried to be sure and find that silver lining and to point it out to other people. She wanted them to know that even though it was hard to give to people, that it was rewarding and that it was always good. And the final one was accepting, which I think is probably one of the most commonly thought of words for Mother Teresa. There was never any loser or winner in the world around her. It was all about people getting what they needed and being able to better themselves in their lives. She just wanted other people to be happy. She always was thinking about what her actions would do to bring joy to other people. She met people where they were, no matter if it was up high or down low, if it was in a time of need or in a time of glory, and she celebrated with them even the small victories. Little things like getting a drink of water were a celebration to her, and she made sure that other people felt those celebrations as well. Those 3 clips were some very different leadership styles. Mother Teresa definitely had a very different style from the Principle in Lean on Me, and even a different style than the ant in A Bug's Life. But when you're looking at the characteristics of a servant leadership, all 3 are great examples.